I want to welcome you to the Retro Rogues Live. Please pay attention to our warning graphic. It states that the Retro Rogues Live show is intended for an adult audience and not intended for children under the age of 13. Parental discretion is advised. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. I am actually going to be drawing Spider-Man for your viewing pleasure this evening. We're going to be talking about some Star Trek Discovery news, a follow-up on Rogue Squadron, and we're also going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, Mark Spector, aka the Moon Knight. All that and so much more on tonight's episode of the Retro Rogues Live. But enough about that. Again, I want to welcome you to the show. My name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your hosts. For nearly the last 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator and graphic designer, worked on a lot of fun things that some people have heard of, such as, let's pick some different things for tonight. X-Men, Sword of the Braddocks. Let's go with Grifter and Brightest Day. Anyhow, enough about that, and welcome back, as always, my great co-host. This is Mr. Eric Alexander. Eric, please tell the folks, hopefully watching or listening at home, some of the fun things you have worked on as a creative professional.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm Eric Alexander, also known as Bass God 14. That's Bass God 14, not Bass God. That's Bass God, like a bass guitar. And I am the Chief Financial Officer of Bad Bob Productions, which is a film production company located in Arizona. Currently, I am the executive producer on a feature film called Staycation, which has been filming in California on location, but also filming all over the world via Zoom. And on that note, we have a sister film. It's technically, you could look at it as the prequel of Staycation, or you could look at it as Staycation being the sequel to this film. It's called Routine. And we've talked about that film several times on this show. And of course, the reason we've been talking about it, besides the relation to Staycation, is because Dave Beatty was very much involved in the creation of that film. It's a micro short, and it was actually filmed during COVID, during the lockdown, during some of the worst restrictions of the lockdown. So they filmed with just one actor. It was just the director and the director of photography. So just basically three people on set, which was done in the director's house at his apartment. Russ Emanuel, the great Russ Emanuel, who Dave and I have worked with many times. The film has become a little bit of a sensation on the film festival circuit. And it's a very simple film. It's a very, very simple film. It's a micro short. It's not even what you would generally call a short. It is a micro short. It's like less than 5 minutes. And I've said this many, many times. I attribute success very much to you, Dave, and the fact that you have your artwork in there that, normally in a normal situation, it might be perceived as, this is just nice artwork at the end of the movie to accentuate the film, that kind of thing, like the thing that Marvel does all the time, that they do in the MCU all the time. They'll have some great artwork at the end of the film. That's not the case with Routine. The case of Routine, the story cannot be told because of the limitation that they had. They only had one location. They could not tell the story without the artwork. And because of that, it's been winning a lot of awards, especially in experimental categories. So Dave, I hope you're fully aware of this, but I have this ready. Dave actually won an award for this film. And I'm actually curious if you had contact with Russ Emanuel, the director, about this, but this is the Waikiki Beach International Film Festival 2021. As you can see, award winners, and I do want to acknowledge other people involved, but it's Best Experimental Short Film, which is what I just said, right? It's an experimental film. They got Best Science Fiction Film, Best Actress for Paige Laurie Pucelle. And by the way, if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, I apologize. I should have asked Russ personally how he pronounces her name. Best Supporting Actor, Alan Courtwright. Best Sci-Fi Screenplay for Emil Harris. By the way, that's awesome because Emil Harris is also the writer for Staycation. Like I said, they're in the same universe. They are related films. Best Sound Design for Lynn Patrana Arukan. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but the one I wanted to get to was Best VFX Artist. Best Visual Effects Artist, Dave Beatty. And everybody needs to clap. Everybody needs to clap at home. And then, of course, best director for Russ Emanuel, and also best producer for Russ Emanuel. So, Dave, let's hear your acceptance speech for this amazing award. I totally surprised him with this, by the way, everybody. Dave did not know I was going to do this, so this is a total surprise for him.
Let me start off by saying, if this is an acceptance speech, I want to start off by saying that I'm genuinely honored. This is not the first time I've been nominated for Routine. It's happened on a lot of different occasions, but this is the first time I've actually won anything. The fact it happened in Waikiki, I think, is pretty damn cool.
It is very cool.
And if I'm going to thank everyone involved, I actually have to start with my co-host here, Mr. Eric Alexander, because without Eric, I would have never met Russ. I would have never had the opportunity to work with Russ in the first place. Eric is the one who actually sought me out and brought me on to actually help them out with Occupants. Right. And had it not been for Occupants, this opportunity, I mean, it would have never, ever happened. We have some surprises for everyone that no one's really aware of yet, that you're theoretically going to be seeing more of my artwork in the future. So I'm excited about that and other things. But I also want to thank Russ Emanuel, for the opportunity. He contacted me out of the blue and said he had this project. And when he explained what he wanted to do, I was like, that sounds friggin' awesome. Like, I would love to be a part of that. And it was just a really fun opportunity. I mean, the artwork is done in a slightly different style than mine because they wanted it in more of an anime, kind of influence, kind of a style. But I really like how everything turned out. And I am just thrilled that everyone is having so much fun with it. I mean, it's doing incredibly well on the films, the short film circuit, and it's been winning a lot of awards. And again, a big shout out to all the cast and the crew, everyone involved. Emil Harris, I think, is the one who actually wrote Routine. And I know he and Russ came up with this idea, big shout out to him. And just a thank you for everyone who's actually watching and enjoying the film. And it's honestly, it's an honor. It's an honor. Because when I got nominated there was like one in the UK, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
But then nothing happened with it, and then I kind of got nominated here and there, and the film's winning all kinds of stuff. Like, it seems like every day there's because Russ will tag me in the announcements, and so it's constantly filling up my news feed. And I'm like, oh wow, everybody's doing really well. And it's like every once in a while there's a mention of me, but I never win. So it's just nice to have won one. I should have reached out to Russ by now. Honestly, Eric, I haven't yet. I did share it on my Facebook page. I was just waiting until I actually had an actual opportunity to talk to him. So if he wanted to talk on the phone or something, we could actually do that.
Right.
Anyhow, but no, I'm honored, and it's a really great project to be a part of, and I'm excited for all the fun things hopefully we will all be doing in the future. So hopefully this is just the beginning. So
it is just the beginning, because like I said, I mean, Staycation, basically we're almost at an hour. I think it's like 55 minutes for Staycation. They've got about another 30 minutes to film, and then it's a feature. And again, and actually, Paige, the actress, she already has filmed her scenes for the feature film for Staycation. So that's already actually in the can. That's already been done. Again, it's all related. It's all in the same universe. They really want to create their own franchise. That's really what Russ and Emil Harris are trying to do. So congratulations to the whole team. As Dave said, there's been multiple awards. But again, hey, this is our boy, Dave Beatty, right? Come on, folks. VFX award. I mean, that's just so cool to get a film award like that. And of course, we do have some familiar faces here in the Rogues Gallery that want to express their support. Asia's in the house.
Hi, Asia.
James Thompson is in the house. He says, nice work, Dave.
Hey, James, good to see you.
Of course, Jane is here, and she says, awesome. You should be very, very proud. Very, very, very proud, Jane. You should be very, very proud of that. I think it's very, very cool. And again, it's one of those things that I think, I mean, it's not necessarily a typical category. Like when I did when I did the film festival for the Phoenix Comic Con, I was the film festival director. I don't think I ever even had an effects category. I did best comedy or something like that, or best drama. I had categories like that, and that we did have a best actor category,
Yeah.
but that was like for everybody. So a lot of these places, they don't even have categories like that. So it's nice that they did, and it's nice when you're able to get an award like that. David Motz is in the house, and he said, "I saw that." He says, "Congrats, Dave Beatty," and we appreciate that. We appreciate that you're checking that stuff out. So,
Hi,
and we
David.
appreciate all you folks, out there in the Rogues Gallery, commenting and all that. And I hope you'll continue commenting on the stories we're going to be bringing up. But again, very cool thing, and there is more to come. Like I said, there's a whole feature film being developed right now based, on the original concept from this micro short. So, definitely more to come. We're going to have Russ back on the show sometime soon, because we did have him on the show previously, and he can kind of give an update on the project and all that.
And
Jackson is in the house.
Hi, Hollywood.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Hollywood. Good to see you. Good to see you.
And along those lines, those of you who actually got a El Gato Cigarettes shirt as a part of your reward campaign, print it with these two hands, everybody.
There you go. I have one. Yeah. I have one. I should have worn it. But yeah, that's right, because we did Russ, I should say, because Russ basically did it for the most part single-handed. He did a crowdfunding campaign for a great deal of what we've already done on Staycation. That's why so much of it is done. Initially, there was only supposed to be like 20 minutes. And then because of COVID, actually, because of the protocols that we had, and they were so strict, we went over budget. We went way over budget on that initial 20 minutes that we were filming, because we were filming in an actual studio in Burbank, actually filming in Hollywood. And we went over budget. And so they had to do a crowdfunding campaign to make up the difference. And they ended up having enough money that they were able to do all these other scenes. Plus, one of the perks was you could be in the film. So they had to add all these other characters to the project, and they had to film their scenes. And lo and behold, now they have like an hour of footage. Weird story. That's why I think it would be fun. We definitely, want to talk about it more. Robert was here. We definitely could talk about it more, because Robert was there when we did the filming for Staycation in Burbank. And he's also done, we did some follow-up where we did some filming with another actor as well.
And I want to plug actually for next week too. Next week, my brother is actually going to be hopefully on the show. His group that he's a part of, Saturday Night Gaming, and my brother has been on the show in the past. Those of you longtime viewers of the show have already seen and probably met Ronnie. But Ronnie will be actually on the show, hopefully next week, actually promoting a RPG, like a role-playing game that he and his friends have actually put together. They've released their first, I think, core manual or whatever that's available like as a digital download. So we'll be talking about that next week. So that'll be kind of fun. It's always nice when we can, focus and support, brand new independent projects here on the show, because I love that stuff. And I know Eric does too.
And that really is part of the whole sort of culture shift and format change that we're trying to do here. It's not going to just be about our project, which for those of you that don't know, we are working on our own project right now. We are going to be debuting that stuff live on the air and talking about what we're doing and showing you artwork and things like that. But we definitely want to support other folks that are doing the same thing, whether it's comics, whether it's film, television, books, whatever it is that you're doing. We definitely want to support you. So folks out there in the Rogues Gallery, if you're doing something, let us know. If you're aware of a project and you feel like maybe they would benefit from being on the show and talking about their project, we're definitely looking for those kinds of things.
Definitely. And James actually says that JJ says hi. So when I say hi, JJ.
There you go. And cool. AJ says, I love RPGs. Woot. So yes, you definitely tune in next week, because we will have an RPG creator on the show. So that's going to be interesting.
And
it'll be fun.
It's interesting too because like the first RPGs my brother ever played obviously was with me. So he grew up playing the Marvel Superheroes RPG, which I bet Asia is very familiar with because it seems like she and I live the same life, just in different bodies. And in addition to that, too, he played a lot of the old DC role-playing game as well. So it's just kind of funny to me, that he's like put this together with his friends. You know what I mean? And like because I just remember playing because he was a little kid, and I always, I hoped he understood everything. You know what I mean? But
right.
I think he was actually a part of the group too when we did our. I'll tell this story real quick. So we'd been playing the game for a while. This is the DC version, and we were having a lot of fun with it, but our characters had gotten really kind of powerful, and it seemed like that there wasn't a lot of challenges, and they had ceased making brand new modules, like new, gameplay sequences for the game. And so we were looking for a way to make it fun for ourselves again. And so someone suggested, I don't remember who it was, that if we rolled and created new characters, but we did not have them be above the level of a normal street crook. We were wondering, like, how much of a challenge would it be if starting out, we were literally on the same level as a street level thug, and we couldn't go any higher than that. And we could only have one specialized ability and no powers. So we rolled up these characters, and I know I suggested the theme. I had been watching the TV show Hat Squad. I don't know if anyone remembers the TV show Hat Squad. And I'm a super diehard question fan. So we all wore fedoras and trench coats, and everybody had their own color. And all our code names were based off of movies. So my character's code name was Die Hard, and I wore red. And we all had the questions no face look. So we looked like the classic versions of the question. And we called ourselves the answer. And the answer. And our characters all worked at the Little Caesars, the brand new Little Caesars. It was just built in Gotham City. And we all shared a beat up Ford Taurus. That was the only thing we could afford as our crime fighting vehicle. Our first module we took on was one that had the Riddler in it. With as our main characters, we could have walked through that, literally sleepwalked through that module, and it wouldn't have been difficult. And we almost died so many times, and it was so much fun. So, and I think that kind of weird nonsense that we used to do might have helped inspire my brother, because he's told me a little bit about his game that he and his friends have put together, and it sounds really cool. And I have a feeling when he gets on the show, he might mention that. So, because we had so much fun with that, it was hilarious. So,
well, there you go. That might be a preview for next week, everybody. So,
there you go.
You will have to get the other side of that story there and see if that indeed is part of the process of how this came about. So, it'll be fun. I have plenty of RPG stories myself as well, and they're weird because I didn't get into the traditional ones. So, all right, so we do have some pop culture news, and I thought it would be good because I know you, Dave, are definitely a big Moon Knight fan. You've been kind of pushing it quite a bit, so I felt that we should definitely start out our pop culture news. We haven't used our graphic in quite a while, but I thought we should start out with our pop culture news about Moon Knight. We still have this old graphic too, Moon Knight Rising update. Remember that?
That's right.
So why don't we get into Moon Knight before you start putting the stylus in hand and start your drawing there?
All right, very cool, very cool. And that artwork there of Moon Knight by the great James Stone and myself, very, very proud of that collaboration. I don't know if James is in the Rogues Gallery tonight, but I just love that artwork that we created. All right, so
yeah, it looks really good.
I told Eric, I said, since we're talking about Moon Knight, we'll do a little bit more show and tell, because I like showing off my Moon Knight books every once in a while. So here's a cool one. This light might be a little too strong for it, but this is my copy of Moon Knight #1. This is the first Moon Knight series. This is Moon Knight #1, and then you see right here we have the various identities of Moon Knight. We have the cab driver, we have the mercenary, and we have the billionaire. And one of the things that's really cool about Moon Knight is the fact that he has schizophrenia. Like that's part of the thing, and it gets kind of interesting in the comics how they approach it, and then in the later comics how they approach it. So I'm dying to see what they're going to do in this Disney Plus series. But they did release, as a part of the Disney Plus Day, they released a series of trailers. One for She-Hulk. They pumped up a lot of their other projects like Ironheart and Echo and everything else, and it all looks really cool. Like I think everyone knows I'm like a pretty big Marvel fan. Eternals has kind of left me a little cold. And Black Widow, like I was kind of surprised Black Widow wasn't better, because Black Widow has some of the best sequences in some of the movies. But beyond that, pardon the pun, I'm over the moon excited for Moon Knight. And I thought the trailer looked really good. Like it's very brief. It has a really super intense. Yeah, see, that's such a cool image, him jumping in front of the moon. And in the comics, he does have superhuman strength and like certain abilities, and it depends upon the phase of the moon. So Moon Knight is typically at his most dangerous during a full moon. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how they do all this. Like if he has the abilities, or if it's all in his mind, how much those different identities are going to actually control him. And there's a super intense scene where he's beating the hell out of somebody, it looks like, and it's just like, hell yeah. So I am beyond excited for Moon Knight. I think Oscar Isaac's going to do a great job. And if you want to learn more about Moon Knight, we'll plug it again. Definitely check out the Retro Rogues fanzine. You can download that for free over at davebeatty.com. You go to davebeatty.com, you click on the Retro Rogues tab at the top. It'll take you to the Retro Rogues page. You can see links to a lot of the YouTube videos that we like to feature, but you can also download that Retro Rogues fanzine for free. Great feature story with PJ from Orville Nation. Another nice feature piece with Benjamin Glendenning, who's actually a fantastic artist and a good friend of mine. And then also, last but not least, that really great write-up actually about Moon Knight and what I think are the 10 most important Moon Knight stories to be aware of in advance of the show. So, Eric, I'm dying to see what you thought about it. What did you think about the Moon Knight trailer? I do know it's really short.
Well, someone who knows almost next to nothing about Moon Knight. In fact, I've gotten my information pretty much exclusively from conversations with Dave here on the show, and as he mentioned, our official fanzine. It was interesting to me. There was a line there that you were talking about the fact that he's schizophrenic, and there's the line where he's basically talking about how he doesn't know what's real and what's a dream. And I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, it's a teaser trailer, so you don't get a ton of substance. But it did give a tone that you kind of you get that feel, like you immediately know that obviously there's something wrong upstairs. And I think that's what they were just trying to impart. I also like the fact that you did get some quick scenes of the actual costume, and it was looking pretty cool to me. But those were my initial impressions, and so I'll be interested to see if they're going to be doing more of like a full trailer where they start to kind of get into the weeds a little bit more. But we'll just have to see how they decide to approach this project. If they might decide that they want to keep a lot of things hidden. So we'll just have to see. It seems like that's kind of the way they go these days. And I'm talking about, when I say they, it seems like Hollywood is like that these days, especially genre. Everything has to be a surprise, right? I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it seems like that. So like sometimes even the most basic plot points, they don't reveal to you because everything has to be shocking. We have to defy our expectations. That seems to be the big thing in Hollywood these days. But we'll see. Maybe they'll give us a little bit more. Like I said, if someone like me who doesn't have, didn't grow up with the character, it's just interesting to kind of, I guess, get caught up and try to figure out who this character is. And it's going to be different, obviously, because that's just the way that's the way any adaptation is. It's not going to be like the comic book. It's going to be different, but there's certainly going to be things that they take from the comic book and other things I think they're going to discard. So
Right. And it'll be interesting too, because there has been more fuel, basically more fuel been poured on the fire. That because we had recommended in a previous episode actually a newer issue of Moon Knight, that, and I'd heard a lot of rumblings that that character is who Ethan Hawke would actually be playing, and there's now been even more rumblings that Ethan Hawke might actually be playing that character. So if you're curious about that, like if you're thinking about getting into the speculation game, I don't remember exactly what episode it was, but it was quite a few episodes back, and we were recommending actually a Moon Knight book, and it looks like that he might actually be playing. I think was it. He's the avatar of the sun god Ra. So it'll be interesting if that actually comes to be, because that book will probably experience the Marvel bump if that does actually come to fruition.
There was a scene, wasn't there? There was a scene in the trailer. Didn't it look like they were doing some sort of like excavation, or maybe even like they were just like, it went by so fast. I seem to remember there was something in the trailer where it kind of looked like they could have been at like an excavation, or it could have been like maybe a warehouse with all sorts of, it looked like Egyptian type, artifacts and things like that.
To me, it either could have been a museum, or it could have been like, again, like maybe like the back room of a museum, like they're preparing to do like an Egyptian actually like exhibition or something.
Yeah, there you
because go. There's a statue in the back that's made of gold. I can't imagine, I don't think that Khonshu's statue would be made of gold. I think it would. That sounds more like Ra, but it could be. But you kind of see him kind of glance back at the statue, because they've connected the fact that Uru, which is the metal that Thor's hammer is actually made of, they've now connected that actually comes from the moon, and that in recent comics, Moon Knight has proven he has dominion over Thor's hammer, because he is the Fist of Khonshu. He is the avatar of the god of the moon. So it'll be interesting to see like how they do that, because if they show us a statue of Khonshu that's made of gold, I think eventually when they reveal exactly how Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley becomes Moon Knight, they're going to have to show us, I think, the more classic Moon Knight Khonshu statue, which is always made more of a white kind of material, almost more like moon rock. So I think that's what they'll give us, but we'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of stuff up in the air with this, but I'm super excited because I love the fact that in that, like you said, Eric, he has a line where he says, I can't tell the difference between the real world and dreams. And that's a really powerful thing. And then there's a great shot of him too, where it looks like he's beat the hell out of 3 guys and his eyes roll back in his head. And he's like, what the hell is going on? Like, they're headed in the right direction with the character. I mean, basically he's basically Batman, but he's completely nuts. But he also, because of his resources, if they do it right, he should have like a helicopter. He's got his own version of like batarangs. He is powered. Like, I mean, it could be really cool. I'm really excited. So can't tell.
We'll definitely see. Asia says, I hope we go in blind. I like it. Mostly because most people know the comic. Again, Asia, I never heard of the comic. So, I mean, I think there definitely are people that do. My co-host is one of them, but I've never heard of it. I had no idea who this character was until Dave started talking about it. And I am very confident in saying that Moon Knight is not considered one of the like top tier Marvel characters, certainly not in other media, because I never remember seeing him in anything. He was not on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's my standard. So all right, Dave, did you want to start?
But there were a lot of characters in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends that might be in this next story that we're talking about.
Yes, very, very, very true. Very, very true. I'm gonna get your pad up there.
All right, cool.
So you can start doing some sketching if you'd like. Can't believe
All right.
we've already gone 30 minutes. I can't believe that. That's like the fastest 30 minutes I think we ever had on this show. Certainly for me it was. That was, I can't believe we were already at 30 minutes. But we do, obviously, the reason that Dave is going to be drawing Spider-Man today is because there has been a ton of buzz over Spider-Man No Way Home. So, of course, if we show you the trailer, we always get in trouble. We always end up getting like a copyright strike or worse. Now they're doing community guideline strikes, which for anybody that knows, you get 3 strikes on YouTube, you're out. They destroy your channel, you're gone. They're really getting kind of nasty over there, I think, and we're not even monetized. So I don't understand it. I don't understand it, but it happens. It happens. So in order to get around this a little bit, I've been trying to take screenshots. So I'm gonna start putting up some screenshots from the trailer, and I would like the Rogue Gallery. You can chime in, and of course, Dave, if you can maybe at least look out of one eye or something like that, so you can see what it is we're talking about. And I think I've got these pretty much in chronological order of how they appeared in the actual trailer. I tried to make sure that I've got these more or less in order. So they do start out with a little bit of sort of a recap. We saw previously the teaser trailer. You may or may not have seen it, but there was a teaser trailer that sort of established some of these things. Obviously, if you've seen the previous movie, you already know about this. So they do establish the fact that Spider-Man has been essentially framed, or for the events that happened in the previous movie, and now he is public enemy number 1. The public has turned on him, and of course, as you can see from the picture, people know who he is now. They know about Peter Parker. They know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and of course, he's not very happy about that. Peter Parker is not very happy about that. So what does he do? He goes to his friend, Doctor Strange, and asks him to, hey, take that away. Take that away so people don't know that I am Spider-Man. And that, again, these facts were already established by the previous teaser, the previous teaser, which we have talked about on the show. This idea that basically, this is the initial setup. So now Peter Parker has been revealed as Spider-Man. He doesn't like it. He goes to his buddy Doctor Strange and says, can you do something about this? And of course, Spidey messes it up. He screws up the incantation because it's actually not in this trailer so much, but in the previous teaser, you can see that he gets all kind of panicky and stuff like that. He starts asking for all these crazy, weird things. And the next thing you know, he screwed up Doctor Strange's spell. And now it's opened up basically the multiverse, right? This is I shouldn't say this is the first inkling, because we have all sorts of other inklings. Endgame was already getting into the multiverse. So this is getting it even further into the multiverse, right? That basically Spider-Man has kind of opened this Pandora's box, and now we're definitely going to start seeing some weird things. So let's see, what's the next image that I got here? So of course, this is also was kind of revealed in the previous teaser. We can see the Green Goblin's bomb, right? That's of course from the original Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire one. So we can kind of see that. So we know what's kind of coming there. Again, that was kind of established in the previous trailer. And then of course we get the image. Now we can see the Green Goblin. We can actually see him there coming out of the smoke. So it's obviously established that that's what we're dealing with here. We've got Spider-Man back in the black suit running around a little bit. And then, of course, we have we have these establishing shots of Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2. Again, from the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man. Again, not a big reveal. We already had that in the previous teaser, right? We already knew that this was going to happen. But they're giving us a little bit more. This particular part, this is actually when he has Spider-Man pinned up against the wall, and of course his mask is ripped off because his mask gets ripped off every 5 seconds. And he's like, "You're not Peter Parker, right?"
Right.
That's the moment that's in this photo here, is where basically Dr. Octopus is like, "Wait a second, you're not Tobey Maguire, so what's going on here?" Right? So we get that indication that obviously he is from the other universe. It's not just like it's not the MCU version of this character. He clearly seems to be from a different universe with his own different Spider-Man. One thing that some people have been criticizing, and I'm kind of like, I don't know how to take it exactly. This is the scene where MJ and Peter and his friend are kind of making fun of Doc Ock's name. I know that there are some people that are kind of upset about that, like they don't appreciate that scene. I'm curious what you think, Dave. Do you think that was just good-natured fun, or do you think they kind of went a little bit over the top with the, "Oh, really? Seriously? Is that your name? That's lame." What do you think?
Well, it didn't really bother me, to be honest. And we all know how dangerous Doc Ock is. So, I'm just, in the back of my head, I was thinking, well, yuck it up right now, because if he gets out and if he needs to walk through all of you, you're in for a world of hurt. So,
well, the previous scene, I mean, he literally has Spider-Man pinned against the wall, and it looks like he's already beaten them, So who knows what's going to happen? And who knows what the order of these scenes are? That's one thing trailers do, is they don't give us the order of things the way it's going to happen in the movie. That's a classic misdirection from a trailer, and actually for a good trailer, because you don't want to necessarily do that, right? That is a case of where you might be giving away too much. You do want to have that misdirection. But I did want to point out some people are upset about that line. And the only thing that I would say is that sometimes I think you have to be very careful when you're doing your own parody. That's the thing that I think you have to be very, very careful about. I think parody is for other people. In other words, other people that are not, don't own the IP. I mean, that's the whole point of parody in the first place. So I think you have to be careful of that. And then we got the other moment, actually, right after this, that some people are kind of scratching their heads over a little bit, which, again, it's the three of them sort of reacting, and they're having a conversation with Doctor Strange. And this is the Scooby-Doo thing. Scooby-Doo it. Scooby-Doo it. Dave, what do you think that means? What is it to Scooby-Doo this? Scooby-Doo this? What does that mean in the context of this movie? Because I don't quite get it. I thought what the Scooby-Doo people did was they go and they find who the ghost is, right? Because there are no actual real ghosts in Scooby-Doo. It's always somebody masquerading as a ghost, and what the Scooby-Doo gang does is they figure that out, and it's Old Man Jenkins, I'll get you kids, oh you rotten kids. So what do you think that even means, Dave, when he says Scooby-Doo this?
I have no idea.
It's a weird line, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they're trying to be funny, but without the proper context of what's happening, we're not going to know. So. And I honestly,
also, it's worth mentioning that Scooby-Doo is owned by Time Warner, which is kind of weird, right? It's almost like, Batman this or something like that. I don't
know. There was all that stuff too. I mean, there was all that kind of reaction to the fact that apparently there's a lot of references actually to Superman actually in Eternals. So, I don't know. I honestly don't really have an answer for you in terms of like what it probably means within the context of the movie. I think it's just supposed to be a funny line, and we won't get any more significance to it, until we can actually see the film, because multiverse wise in the What If series, there actually potentially is another version of Doctor Strange that could be running amok in this movie. We could actually have two different versions of Doctor Strange in this film. So we'll have to see. I don't know exactly what they're referencing. So I don't even have a clue.
Asia's got an interesting take on that. She says it's when I think she means whenever you get the gang together to solve a mystery. So, but I don't think it is a mystery though, Asia, because we kind of I don't know because it seems to me that Doctor Strange pretty much knows exactly what's going on. I mean, that's when he's trying to tell them to fix this, right? It's like he's telling them what the problem is. He's like, hey, you got to fix this, because it was Peter Parker that kind of screwed it up. But that's as good an interpretation as anything, right? He wants you to get the gang together to solve a mystery. And going back to the previous comment when they're making fun of Doc Ock's name, Asia also had a comment where she said, if you have teenagers, that's basically what happens when we tell teenage kids about our golden age superheroes. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, there's definitely a certain amount of that. I mean, teenagers, obviously that's a transition age. And, I know that I had a lot less interest in comic books and things like that when I was a teenager because I was into other things. I was doing a lot of other things in high school besides reading comic books, so I can see that. I mean, I can see that they're just sort of doing the teenage thing, but I feel like it's going a little bit further than that. But I do see where you're coming from, that they're just being snarky teenagers and they've got to insult dad's superheroes or dad's stuff. I get the sentiment there. And Hollywood says, don't Picard this up. Don't Picard this up. And I hope you're referring to Marvel, as much as anything else, or I should say Sony, right? Because Sony is actually technically in charge of this movie, even though it's an MCU movie. So that's kind of interesting too.
That's the thing I find most interesting about this is that this is the Marvel film I'm most excited for. And then, what we're looking at here is essentially a Sony movie. Because at one point, like we talked last week, or actually, I think you and I talked actually off air during our business meeting yesterday. I told you, I said that it trips me out that, here's Sony, where a lot of us were like going, oh no, Sony can't continue to own Spider-Man anymore. They're just going to mess it up. And then here they are giving us what looks like this super amazing, Spider-Man movie that I'm really excited for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. We have talked about it on the air as well, that, I think fans for the longest time, they were really excited about Disney purchasing Marvel. And they were like, oh, we just need to get, the X-Men. We need to get all the Fox stuff. And then we need to get Spider-Man, like a lot of people obviously were excited when Spider-Man was introduced in Civil War and thought, oh, this is really cool. And it's just a matter of time before it's all under one roof. And now I feel personally, and I think a lot of other people feel like, hey, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Maybe it actually is good that there are multiple studios that own these characters, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. And we're going to see. We're going to see, because I will say this. I have heard even from very cynical fans who are very against Disney right now, that they have some excitement for this film. So it's very interesting to see that, again, this is Sony's project. This is Sony's thing. Yes, it is in the MCU, but it's Sony's thing. And it seems like there's a lot more excitement from this, from quarters that you might not expect. Mott's had an interesting comment where he said Spider-Man and Scooby-Doo crossover has happened, so I'm okay with it, meaning the Scooby-Doo line. I didn't know that, again, because Scooby-Doo is owned by Time Warner. So I didn't realize that ever happened. I'm very aware of the Batman crossovers that they've had with Scooby-Doo. I didn't know that they ever had that really is like having Spider-Man and Batman in a comic book, so which has happened. I know they've done DC Marvel crossovers, but it's a really rare thing. So that is interesting. All right. Hollywood Jackson says Scooby-Doo was kind of a superhero. He kind of is. I mean, he has a talking dog, you know what I mean? So that's kind of super when you think about it. And Mott says it was in the cartoon. I didn't know it was in the that Spider-Man was ever in the cartoon. Of course, that was back before, I guess, Time Warner actually owned Scooby-Doo, right? That was back when Hanna-Barbera was its own company. So that's interesting. Yeah, there is obviously that history. Time Warner did not create those characters, but then again, they didn't create Batman either. So it's just kind of stuff they've acquired over the years. All right, let's move along here. So we've got this scene of Jonah Jameson. We can see the Daily Bugle truck in the background. He, of course, if you saw the previous film, he was the one sort of announcing, that about Spider-Man. Of course, it made sense because, Jonah Jameson's always hated Spider-Man. So, of course, he'd be the person to reveal him and all that kind of stuff. So we have an image of him. Of course, we could ask, which version of this of him is this, though? Who knows, right? Because we are getting some introductions in the multiverse. So we don't know if it's the MCU version or if is it the Tobey Maguire version? Who knows, right? Who knows? And then we have, I think, something a lot of people are talking about. I actually think there's a lot of anticipation for this, but I honestly feel like there might be not so much to this as some people are hoping for, because there's a lot of people that are really hyping this up, this confrontation between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. And it kind of reminds me of like one of the most exciting moments, I think, in the entire MCU. For me, is the moment when, Captain America defends himself with his shield against Thor's hammer. And a lot of people talked about how it was almost like more entertaining to watch the superheroes fight each other than it was, the rest of the movie, and the aliens and stuff. And of course, that culminated in Civil War, right? If you're a big Civil War fan, that was a big part of it, right? Was you got to see these superheroes fight each other, because the one thing we've talked about on this show, Dave, is that in a lot of ways, sometimes the MCU villains are underwhelming. That's probably the Achilles heel of the MCU, in my opinion, is that they haven't been doing a great job on the villains. Thanos and Loki being the big exceptions, because I think they did a great job with both of those, and those are fan favorites at this point. But a lot of the other ones, they're no names at this point. I mean, they're just nothing. So these kind of confrontations are, I think, very interesting from that perspective and from the history of the MCU, I think. But I am kind of wondering whether this is going to be as much as it kind of appears to be. Where is it really going to be a full-on fight? And we have this sort of crazy image here, of Doctor Strange, like basically like pushing, Spider-Man's soul out of him or whatever. Right? It's kind of crazy. So a lot of people are really anticipating this, and a lot of people I've actually been hearing they want to see Doctor Strange just absolutely kick Spider-Man's ass. So I'm curious what you think about that, because this is a total nerd thing. Like, this is a total nerd debate. Like, who do you think would win?
Well, depending upon how they approach this, because I feel like that whatever starts between the two of them, will not be resolved until later in the film. But again, I'll just point this out, because of What If, we do have the potential that there is a different version of Doctor Strange that could potentially be in the film. And even though initially we may think that this is the same Doctor Strange that we all know, we're not going to be sure until we're watching the movie exactly which one that we're dealing with.
That's interesting. And also we were talking about that creative editing and trailers. These could be two different fights, two different scenes. They could. I mean, they look like they're the same. Obviously, you can see the background, but again, the background I think is actually Doctor Strange's, mansion. But I think that's a really interesting insight, Dave. Is that possibility that this could be a different Doctor Strange than quote unquote the MCU Doctor Strange. But also, I just want to point out that these scenes could be two different Doctor Stranges. There could be two different fights, because in this first image, Spider-Man is stealing, the artifact, the object that Doctor Strange has been using to create this incantation in the first place. And then, of course, in the second image, it looks like he still has it in his hand, so it does appear to be the same fight. But you just never know. You never know. I mean, it could be two different versions of Doctor Strange, or as you said, the initial fight could be with a different version of Doctor Strange. But it does still beg the question, regardless of that, Who do you think would win in a fight between Doctor Strange and Spider-Man?
I mean, to me, it has to go to the magic user. I would totally expect the Sorcerer Supreme to win in this confrontation. He
And
just
that's
potentially
and
has
that's mostly what I've been hearing too from people that I've
right.
heard talking about it that are kind of hyped about this. Like, I think there's some people that are megally hyped about this particular scene. They really want to see Doctor Strange and Spider-Man really go at it.
And additionally, too, I'm going to go ahead and do this right now because I like to call out different ideas. I would not be surprised that towards the end of this film, with everything going to heck in the handbasket, if we do in fact have a good Doctor Strange and an evil Doctor Strange and everything else we know is going on in this movie, do not be surprised if Wanda Maximoff shows up and plays a role.
Yeah.
If they're doing
it seems to me that anything is potentially on the table with this. I mean, once you do the multiverse thing, you know, anything, you know, the Fox stuff, you know, and you know, there's any potential. But then of course we do have Doctor Strange's movie where, you know, you feel like this is where we're really going to get into it, right? This is sort of the preview to that. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it's all on the table. Asia says, I think this is alternate Doctor Strange. So she's saying she does not think this is MCU Doctor Strange, but she does say Doctor Strange all day. Mage wins. Just like you said, the magic user wins. I'm going to take a little bit of a counter argument to that. I don't know about the MCU version of Spider-Man. I have to really think about that, about the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man. But the Spider-Man that I know, and again, Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. That's my definitive Spider-Man. Spider-Man's really smart. So to me, it's not just magic versus like, you know, a superhero or something like that, or however you want to perceive it, you know, magic versus brawn. I don't know. It's important to remember how smart Peter Parker is, how smart Spider-Man is. And he does have a lot of tricks up his sleeve, literally. I mean, that's where the web shooters come from, right? He did that, you know, he's the one who did that. Now, the MCU version, he still has a lot of that. It's not as prominent, right? That's actually one of the criticisms a lot of people have of the Tom Holland version, is that they don't feel like it's emphasized enough, even though it's alluded to. But he's also augmented by Tony Stark's tech. So again, it comes to a point that it's not just sort of like your superhero versus magic. It's also like science versus magic in a lot of ways. So I'm going to just kind of throw that out there. So I think that would be kind of a wild card factor in Spidey's corner. And I'm definitely more of a Spidey guy than a Doctor Strange guy. Not that I have anything against Doctor Strange. I'm just more of a Spidey guy. All right, now we got another villain that shows up. Now, this one, I need help from the Rogues Gallery. I need some help from you, Dave, because I have not seen any of the Amazing Spider-Man films. There's two of them. I did not see either one. I totally skipped them. So I'm not very familiar with their versions of the villains and stuff like that. But obviously, this is from the gosh, I'm already confused. It's from the second film or the first one?
This is from the second Andrew Garfield film. This is Jamie Foxx, and he's playing Electro.
There you go. The second one. That's what I didn't remember. Yeah. I didn't know which villains were in which film. So clearly, obviously, he's making an appearance in this film as well. Did you like this version, by the way, of the character?
It was okay. I did not hate the Andrew Garfield films. The thing I thought was most interesting about this, which Lynn in the Rogues Gallery has just pointed out, is that they have changed the character's look. And right before he powers up in this clip, he actually has the electrical stuff kind of around his face that is reminiscent of the old school green and yellow Electro mask, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. So Lynn's comment says, apparently Electro isn't blue anymore.
Right, because he was blue in the Andrew Garfield movie.
And then Lynn had a larger comment that I'm going to read here. He said, just made it in, by the way. Welcome, Lynn. We'll always appreciate your insight. He says, looking forward to the next Spider-Man movie, but I am getting a bit tired of older guys with goatees telling Spidey what to do. Not sure about the big CGI fight scene. Could be cool or could be a big mess. Villains look a bit better. Would have loved to see a more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swinging in New York City. They seem to shoehorn him too much in for my tastes. And I've heard the criticism. You're talking about the older guys with goatees, as you put it, telling Spidey what to do. I touched on a little bit the fact that the MCU version, Spider-Man obviously is augmented by Tony Stark's tech, and he's also supposed to be sort of Tony is supposed to be sort of a mentor to Spider-Man in the MCU. So it is a different Spider-Man. And I was also trying to qualify that in my opinion of the fight, because there are some quirks about the MCU Spider-Man versus other versions of Spider-Man. I'm just going to say it. I mean, there definitely is. It's their own interpretation. It's different because they did, as you have mentioned right there, Len, they did have to shoehorn him in. That's true, because Spider-Man wasn't there initially. They had no access to Spider-Man, right? Initially that wasn't even a possibility. It wasn't until the MCU became such a big thing that Sony even considered allowing this, right? Allowing this kind of a crossover. So it's something that came later. Motts also says, Electro, nice star patch. Nice star patch. Okay. All right, so let's see what we got after this. So this is something that passes by so quickly that I'm not sure if a lot of people caught this, but we obviously have another version of the Green Goblin that's going to appear in this film. Dave, do you have any information about which version of the Green Goblin this image is?
Is this going to be... I have a feeling, and it does go by really quick. Like, I don't think this is going to be Hobgoblin, because they had, of course, Norman Osborn's son become a version of Green Goblin, which they called Hobgoblin in, of course, the Maguire movies. And then they did a different version of that too, even in the Andrew Garfield. So it is up in the air. This could be the Andrew Garfield Green Goblin. This could be potentially, I don't think it's Hobgoblin, but I guess it could be. Or this could be the Green Goblin that we've already seen in a reworked suit, or even the MCU version that we
I was going to say that.
Yet.
That's what I was going to say. Or I guess it could even be the actual MCU Green Goblin, you know?
Yeah.
So the image is so blurry that it's kind of impossible to tell. But some of you folks who have seen the movies, because remember, I haven't seen the Amazing Spider-Man ones, you might be looking at this and say, I think it's that one. You know what I mean? So that I'm not familiar enough to say one way or the other. What I initially thought was this is what's also referred to as the new Goblin, the Spider-Man 3 Goblin. That's kind of what I thought at first, but I haven't heard anything one way or another. But clearly we have another Goblin as well. This was a passing image, and I was actually just kind of curious, and I was just going to ask you, Dave, and if anybody in the Rogues Gallery knows, I noticed these kind of SWAT team member guys that are kind of going in, and it appears that their trucks say DODC. Do you know what that stands for? Is that something from the comic books, Dave, or anything like that? Do you know about? Have you ever heard of that?
It doesn't immediately strike me as anything. Someone else in the Rogues Gallery might have an idea, though. But initially with me, it doesn't strike me as anything in particular.
I was just curious what that is. I mean, because they make a point of putting them in there, and I was just curious if that was something, because I know that I know in like, I remember, for instance, in the the Superman animated series, the 90s one, like, for instance, the Gotham Police Department. Not the Gotham. Jeez, I'm confusing every single other character. The Metropolis PD, they had a special unit. They actually had a special unit that was supposed to, deal with inner gang and eventually deal even with Darkseid and stuff like that, extraterrestrials, which of course Intergang actually technically was part of.
Right.
I know that they've played around with that, especially in the DC universe, where they have like these specialized units and stuff like that, which we haven't really seen in the MCU. It's actually one of my other criticisms. Like, I kind of feel like I think it would be kind of cool to see, like, how police departments deal with superheroes, how the military deals with superheroes. I think that's actually a part of the MCU that's neglected, because I think that'd be kind of neat if they had some stuff that showed those kind of characters. With Shield gone, it kind of takes away from a lot of that, right? Because Shield kind of what was that thing, right, that was supposed to be dealing with this stuff, but now you don't really have Shield in the MCU. It's kind of weird. Mott says it's Department of Damage Control. I don't know if you're being serious or if that's actually what it is, Mott. Let me know. Department of Damage Control. Interesting. All right, so let's see what the next one is after that. Oh, of course, we've got an image here. Favreau is going to be making an appearance again, right? So he's got to be in it. That makes sense for, I guess, anybody that might have been wondering. So what I'm curious if he's going to play much of a prominent role, though. Or if he's essentially just going to be kind of a cameo. This goes back to Lynn's comment. Is he going to be the goatee telling Spidey what to do? Is he going to be the, I guess it's actually Doctor Strange that seems to be the goatee telling Spidey what to do, right? That's in the trailer for sure. But could this be another goatee that is telling Spidey what to do, right? So, and I know, Lynn, you said you're kind of sick of that. So we'll see how that all works out. I know a lot of people are excited about this image right here of seeing the Lizard, Sandman, and Electro all together. I know that there's a lot of fans that were kind of freaking out about this. Do you believe that this is the version of the Lizard from the Andrew Garfield films?
I do.
Because I was curious
totally
about
believe
that.
Yeah, I totally believe it is. So,
yeah, I know a lot of people are really into this one. And then Motz went on to say with his comment about the damage control, he said, a joint venture between Stark Industries and the federal government, the Department of Damage Control will oversee collection and storage of alien and other exotic materials. I do remember that, actually. Yeah, I do remember that was tied into to Vulture's character, right? Wasn't that his job? Wasn't that what he was doing? He was a construction. He was basically contracted to work for them, right? Well, that was the idea.
No, actually, that's what the deal was. Is he had the contract to salvage and potentially sell or repurpose the technology, and then what ended up happening is Damage Control came in and took possession of that, and they basically revoked his license. And that's when he was talking about, right. But I've hired all this crew, I bought all these trucks, like we had a contract. And that's kind of what set him on his criminal path. I just didn't realize that, I guess for whatever reason, I know what Damage Control is. I read the series back in the day, but I just didn't immediately make the connection. So,
well, Mott's got it. So we appreciate that, Mott. You answered my question perfectly. And now that you've said it, I totally remember that from the previous Spider-Man film. And, again, that was like the whole conflict, that got Michael Keaton's character upset in the first place. So very relevant in the Spidey section of the MCU for sure. Very well established. So good call there, Motz. I appreciate it. That's why I like the Rogue Gallery. They keep us honest and they got good information. Let's see what we got as far as the next image here. And of course, we always have to have the scene of MJ tumbling possibly to her death. And I will add this. And of course, with Spider-Man without his mask, because Spider-Man can never wear his mask because, we've got to see Tom Holland's sexy, pretty face, right? So that's kind of what there is a scene after this, but I don't have a screen capture of it. It's the scene where Doctor Strange is like basically saying, "No, I can't stop it," and it seems like now all sorts of stuff is starting to come in, which does open that door to possibly anything. Who knows? But then again, that scene could be at the beginning of the movie, right after the incantation goes wrong or something. They do mess with you with these trailers as far as the chronology of what's going to happen in the film. But yes, we have this image of MJ falling. I'll just say, I don't think there's even a chance, there is absolutely no chance she's going to die or anything like that. Do you think there's any chance she's going to die, Dave? Any chance at all?
I don't think so. I mean, it's possible, but at first blush, I'm going to say I don't think so. So
here you go. Here's something if they want to be really kind of cheeky and silly and mean and all that stuff. She dies, but it turns out she's actually an alternate one. She's not actually the MCU MJ. They cheat it. I could see them trying to do something silly like that. But I don't think she's in any actual real danger, which provides a little bit of a problem with those kinds of scenes. Like if you don't really believe that the character's in danger, I don't know if it's going to work for me or not. So we shall see. We shall see. Lynn had a comment earlier, and I wanted to go back to it. He just said, "Wow, I need to read my post before hitting send." I totally relate to that, Lynn. Typos. With shoehorning, I meant the Spidey movies, especially the third Raimi movie with Venom, which apparently was a studio call. As cool as Sinister Six fight would be, not sure if I trust Hollywood Sony to pull it off. And it's funny you say that, Len, because that's what I've been hearing the most excitement about. I've been hearing the most excitement, on Twitter, is where people are really stoked about this version of the Sinister Six. Because if you count the number of villains I just showed you, we've got 6, right? We've got, Dr. Ock, we've got two green goblins, and then of course we've got Sandman, Electro, and the Lizard. So a lot of people are actually really digging that. They're really digging that. And I will say this, Dave, I think it's overdue. Don't you think it's overdue for this at some version of the Sinister Six? Don't you think that's way overdue?
I mean, I think it's way overdue. I am excited to see the film. I feel like that this is a better way to attempt to do the Sinister Six than their previous plans. That's just my own personal opinion. Because the other ways they would have done it, it may not have felt maybe quite as, shoehorned in or whatever, but I just don't. I feel like this way, because that version of Doc Ock that we got in the Raimi films is a great version of the classic Doc Ock. Like, I don't think we're getting a better version of Doc Ock if they were to do like a contemporary Sinister Six. Like if they actually worked it into the MCU, like in a more strategic, planned out, methodical manner, I don't think we get like such a great classic version of Doc Ock. So, because that's, if you look at it, that's what we're kind of getting. We're getting like, even though visually he's different, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is very much the classic Green Goblin, even though visually he doesn't look that way. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is a classic, Spider-Man villain version of Doc Ock. And then a lot of the other, Sandman, a classic version, but twists and maybe not exactly, but you understand, like at least visually, he looked right. And then when you start looking at,
I hate the Sandman. I absolutely hate the Spider-Man 3 version of Sandman.
Okay, well, I'm saying
I despise
visually,
it. I despise it. So
right, but if you look at him visually compared to the comic book, like they had him look like the comic book version of Sandman. And all I'm trying to say is, we have a mix of more classic interpretations with modern interpretations. Jamie Foxx's Electro is very different from the classic version of Electro. The version of the Lizard, while pretty close to I guess it's pretty close to the classic version of the Lizard. But I'm just saying we have a mix of more modern interpretations with contemporary.
I always wondered, because it was obviously teased in the Tobey Maguire version that we were going to get the Lizard, and we didn't. And I always thought what they would have done with it, how that would have panned out, because obviously that was supposed to be coming, that was set up,
Right.
So that's always been a big question mark for me, is like how that would have turned out, because
Right.
I haven't seen the other one, as I mentioned. I just haven't seen those two films. I skipped those two middle Spider-Man films. So, but I know a lot of people are excited about it, and again, that image that I showed before, the image of the Sandman and the Lizard and Elektra together, a lot of people were really freaking out about that, and it was like, this is freaking awesome. This is really awesome. So it has put some excitement out there that I think definitely eclipses Eternals, and even to a large extent, eclipses even like Black Widow, the last Black Widow film, I think, in a lot of ways. And again, I just think it's interesting because this is a Sony film. It's not Disney.
Yeah.
It's not technically Marvel. And I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that, that part of it, that there does seem to be a lot more positive energy and excitement about this film than there has been for some of these other, quote unquote official, MCU movies, if you will, these pure Disney films, if you will. Regarding that scene that I was talking about with MJ falling, Mott said Spider-Man is vaccinated, so he doesn't need his mask.
All right.
Now, Mott, you know what my mask thing is. I think you've been following the show long enough to know I hate how often they take the mask off. I hated it in the Tobey Maguire versions. I even go so far as the camera inside Iron Man's freaking helmet, I think, is ridiculous. That view, it's like, dude, can't you just freaking act with a mask on? If they can do it in Deadpool, they can do it with anybody. You know what I mean? So if you can do it in that one. And I think it might have even been you, Mont. Somebody brought up the point. Well, the thing is, his real face is supposed to be all mangled up. So he's got to choose one or the other, right? He's either put the mask on or the prosthetics. And I had made the point, well, I think they should do that with everybody. We should do that with every character now then. Give them a choice of prosthetics or a mask, because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I really am. I feel like, if you know anything about the history of theater, and especially with the Western theater, you talk about the Greeks and actually lots of other cultures too, they wore masks, and it's a most basic thing. And now Hollywood, like these Hollywood actors, they can't wear a mask. They can't act with a mask on. They've got to take it off. They got to get ripped off every 5 seconds. I don't like that. I just do not like that. It's just not my thing. I want to see Spidey. I don't need to see Tom Holland all the time. I want to see Spidey, So let's see. Do we have any other things? Lynn had a follow-up comment where he says, I agree. If you're going to do the Sinister Six in this universe, this is the way to go. But Doc and Sandman seem to turn back good at the end of 2 and 3. So we'll see. Well, I didn't really hit it when I was talking about, was reviewing the trailer and showing the images. One part I kind of ignored is the conflict, right? The conflict that Doctor Strange and Spider-Man supposedly are having, assuming that is the MCU version of Doctor Strange. But then again, I guess it could be another version too, and it's still the same conflict. Is that Doctor Strange is saying, "Hey, these guys all die," and that's kind of funny because, right, even in the MCU, they all die. Also, by the way, which I think is kind of. It's like, are they going for some sort of self-parody or self-critique here? Because that's one of my big criticisms of the MCU and of a lot of superhero movies in general, is the killing the villain. I felt that way ever since the Michael Keaton version of Batman, when they killed Joker. Yeah, I was just like, that's not right. That's just not right. You can't kill an iconic character like that. That's ridiculous, especially the Joker. You know what I mean? And I hate that so many of the villains, they die. And it's like, no, the villain is supposed to be defeated and, he goes to jail or he runs away, but he's going to come back again. That's the way that I was always brought up. But the conflict, right, in this movie is supposed to be that the MCU version, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's like, no, 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 I don't want to kill him. You know what I mean? We've got to find another way. So there is kind of an indication that, are they going to turn good? I don't know. I think that'd be kind of suck, to be honest with you, because I want to see that big confrontation, that big fight. But there's got to be some reason why the CU version of Spider-Man is so reluctant to kill them, that kind of a thing, because it doesn't seem like they have a problem killing off characters in the MCU. I mean, especially villains. Like, they seem to all die. So, I mean, look what Thor did to Thanos. I mean, I thought that was way over the top, so I don't know. I mean, I guess they're just trying to say, I guess the MCU version of Spider-Man, he's a nicer guy. He doesn't do that. Maybe he's trying to go against the grain of all the other superheroes in the MCU, because they never seem to have a problem killing off the villains. And certainly the other versions of Spider-Man don't seem to have that much of a problem, except when it comes to Sandman, right? And then you got to let him go, which is why I hate that movie. Lynn, I don't know the reference, but he says, I love Bruce Campbell's reaction to a full face mask in Comic Book the Movie. And I've seen Comic Book the Movie. I have it. I actually own it. I'll have to watch that again, because I kind of remember that scene of Bruce Campbell, trying to talk about the mask and stuff like that. But I'll have to watch it again, because I actually own that. I actually do own Comic Book the Movie. But there's all sorts of stuff. Like, I like Carl Urban's opinion, like, his version of Judge Dredd, where he basically insisted he had to wear the helmet. Whereas I know that there was a big controversy with the Sylvester Stallone version, because a lot of people don't remember this. But initially, the very first trailer that came out for the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, they didn't say Sylvester Stallone was in it, and they did not show his face. I don't know if you remember that, but I was actually really, really psyched, because I remember seeing the first trailer for the Sylvester Stallone version of Judge Dredd, and there was nothing about Stallone. And then there was this huge criticism from Hollywood, from like the Hollywood magazines and stuff like that, saying, how are you not advertising Stallone? How are you not showing his face? And I almost wonder if they actually even did some reshoots and rewrites as a result of that criticism, because seriously, the first trailer, they did not show his face. They don't even mention he's in it. And then I think that's one of the big criticisms of that version is then the next thing you know, he's like, doesn't have the helmet the whole movie. Whereas, the Carl Urban version, he does. And I think most people think that the Carl Urban version of Judge Dredd is far superior to Sylvester Stallone. And again, it's because of the mask. That's part of the mystique. It makes him Dredd instead of just being Carl Urban, or instead of being Sylvester Stallone. We want to see Dredd. We don't want to see, the actor. At least I don't. Some people do, I guess. Some people they like that. But me, I want to see the character. I think actors should act. I'm crazy about that way. I really do. I feel like actors should act. So let's see here. I think that's all I got for the trailer, Dave. Did you have anything else that you just wanted to say about the Spider-Man trailer?
No, I think it looks good. I'm excited to see it. That's all.
Yeah, I will say again that it seems to me that this is the one that I've heard even a lot of people that have been very kind of anti Disney MCU, if you will, especially as of late, that they are actually, cautiously optimistic or even excited. They even go beyond cautiously optimistic, where they're like, hey, I think this might actually be really fun. And
Right.
This is going to be good, so we shall see. We shall see. I mean, it's all about the execution. It's all about the execution. Asia mentions that the Carl Urban story was comic accurate, though. Yes, that's my point. Yeah, the Judge Dredd doesn't take his helmet off. So that's just the thing, right? It's part of the mystique. Mott's has a comment about your sketch, Dave. He says Spidey is looking good.
Oh, thank you. It's getting there. We're at 119 now, and I'm kind of sweating bullets here to see if I can pull this off. So I decided to get adventurous again. So
Well, good thing is we haven't covered all of our stories yet, so we're still good on that side. We still have more material that we need to cover to at least get through the description, because that's my standard. There is we got to at least address everything that was in the description, right? Got to at least do that.
Right.
James Thompson says it's awesome to watch it come to life, and yeah, it is awesome, and it's one of the reasons that Dave, I think, does this, because he knows a lot of us are into that. We're into the process, right? And that's part of what we want to be putting out there for folks, because of the format change of the show, is that the process is as much, sometimes as much of the fun as the finished product, right?
Right.
It's a process of doing it, and a lot of us appreciate that. Any of you who like behind the scenes and stuff like that, sometimes the behind the scenes is better than the movie. I mean, I'll say it. It happens a lot of times, I think, and even sometimes with good movies, behind the scenes is better. It's not like it's just because it's a horrible movie, but it does happen, and I think that's what we're trying to put out there, because we want to make sure people are invested in the process, because we're going to be showing you our process, hopefully very soon. Asia says, Dave, I see the John Romita in it. It looks amazing.
Thank you.
And then Jane says that she agrees with me. She says, I prefer the characters wear their masks during the entire movie. When you see the face, it breaks the mood for me. You think about the actor instead of the character. I totally agree, obviously. I totally agree, Jane. I do understand the alter ego aspect, and I always think that's interesting to me. So to me, one thing that's neat to show is these are alter egos, right? And you can make arguments one way or the other. Like Dave and I think, have argued about, is Superman really Superman, or is Superman Clark Kent? We've argued about that before, right? But the fun thing and that you can do in movies is you can have that, right? Like, think of Christopher Reeves, right? And the way that he portrayed Superman versus the way he portrayed Clark Kent, right? His approach to it, which was very different than the way that George Reeves did it. The George Reeves Superman, or I should say Clark Kent, was actually pretty cool. You know what I mean? He was a cool cat, very kind of serious guy. Whereas Christopher Reeve made Clark Kent kind of into a joke, right? So there are ways that actors can do this, right, and still be involved in their process and give their own slant and their interpretation. It's just as you said as well, it's just taking the mask off every 5 minutes because we got to see their glorious mug. Dude, you have an alter ego for that. We can show the alter ego. That's interesting too. The Peter Parker stuff can be interesting and fun, and it's part of the character. But then I also want to see Spidey. You know what I mean? I want to see Spidey. That's the main thing to me. I think Watts is talking about your drawing, Dave. He says, to save time, you should have left his mask off.
Uh-huh.
And I think Mats is saying with the Superman thing, I think it's a typo, right? Because he says he is either Superman or Clark Kent. He is Kal-El. I think you're saying he's neither, right, Mats? You're adding a third argument that he is neither Superman nor Clark Kent. He is actually Kal-El. My argument would be that Kal-El is Superman. So I go kind of with that way. But I hear what you're saying. That's a total great nerd debate. You know what I mean? Total great geek debate is who is Superman ultimately. I've always thought personally, my personal interpretation is the DC characters, especially the big three, like Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. They are Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. Whereas Spider-Man really is Peter Parker. And I've heard that sort of interpretation from a lot of people where they'll say that's sort of the Marvel way versus the DC way. At least when you're talking about the big characters. There are certain other characters I don't think that applies in either universe, but that's just a general thing I've always heard, and I've kind of always gone that way. I do not think Batman is Bruce Wayne. I think Bruce Wayne died in the alleyway with his parents. That's my interpretation of that character. Is there is no Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is just a facade. He's just something that Batman uses to get through life and get what he needs, because he needs tons and tons of money for his gadgets. So we can argue about that all day. Certainly we can argue about that all day.
And one of the things that's interesting about Moon Knight is it takes this whole debate and flips it on its head.
There you go. There you go. It'll be interesting to see, especially for me as someone who hasn't doesn't have a real familiarity with the character. It'll be interesting for you to comment, because you know, as it when it comes out, if you feel they're doing a good job of that or not, or maybe they're going to take it a different way in the series. You never know. You know, I just gave two examples of Superman that are kind of radically different when you talk about George Reeves and Christopher Reeves. They had different interpretations of the character. They executed the characters differently. And I'm not saying one is necessarily wrong and the other is right. I prefer Christopher Reeves' take, but that doesn't mean I think George Reeves' version stinks or anything like that. I definitely don't believe that. I'm trying to make sure I'm caught up with the comments here. Lynn says, in the comics back in the day, if the characters took off their masks on a rooftop or alley, they didn't have to worry about security cameras and cell phones everywhere, or Facebook recognition software. That's a good point. In the modern world, it makes even less sense to be taking your mask off every 5 seconds, because people would take pictures of you. Everybody has a phone, and everybody's phone has a camera. So it's funny how it makes even less sense when you think about it in the modern world, because you really would have to be covered up like all the time. You couldn't be taking your mask off and stuff like that, you know, for dramatic pause, because you're going to get somebody's going to take a picture of you. I like that, Len. That's a good point. And Asia says that's facts. They have to look out for Skynet now. That's right. They absolutely do. Because there's always that possibility that they could be photographed, right? So you'd have to be very careful in a modern setting, right? If you were a superhero and you were trying to conceal your identity, you'd have to be very, very careful, and you can't be taking that mask off all the time. Would not work. And Hollywood says Spider-Man is actually Picard.
You're killing me, Hollywood.
I hope not, Hollywood. I really hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not.
I hope that's not true. That would be a total bummer.
Maybe that's what they mean by Scooby-Doo. He's gonna. Well,
he gave us a great segue. So he brought up Picard. What is Picard from? Star Trek, right? We actually have not done a Streaming Wars segment in a long time on this show, and in large part because I didn't feel like there was anything earth-shattering happening in the Streaming Wars. I feel like it's kind of like it's a lull right now, where things are kind of stabilized a little bit. But we did have a new front, a new battle in the Streaming Wars recently. So I'm going to put up the Streaming Wars graphic, which we haven't put up in a long time. So we haven't covered Streaming Wars in quite a while, but I think that this story with Star Trek Discovery definitely fits the bill of something that would be included in the Streaming Wars. So I do have a little screenshot here from the article that I'll be referencing. So let me bring up the article for myself. I don't want to put it on the feed because that tends to cause problems. This is from Deadline, and this article is dated November 16th, 2021, just a couple days ago. It says Star Trek Discovery exits Netflix tonight. That was obviously November 16th. Set for 2022 launch at Paramount Plus globally. I'll read a little bit of this article, and then I'll give you some of my own thoughts. It says, more than 4 years after the series starring Sonequa Martin Green launched on what was then CBS All Access in North America and Netflix in the rest of the world, Discovery will be leaving the streamer as of midnight tonight. And again, that was on the 16th, a couple days ago. In a just closed deal between Viacom, CBS, and Netflix, the Shawstone-controlled company has ended the lucrative financial arrangement that launched Discovery back in 2017. In broad strokes, the bargain that then CBS head honcho Les Munoz made with Netflix saw the latter paying the vast majority of Discovery's hefty budget for the overseas rights. With the top-tier IP fully back in the fold, the plan is for Discovery to take flight on Paramount Plus around the globe starting next year. Now, I think you might have already kind of already kind of heard a little problem I'm having with this article. So it says, with the top-tier IP fully back in the fold, meaning Discovery is their top-tier IP. Yeah, I would say that there's people that would argue that's not the case, right? There is a lot of spin in this particular article. Okay, it's there. If you want to check it out yourself, you can go on Deadline. Again, that's the title is Star Trek Discovery exit Netflix tonight, set for 2022, launch at Paramount Plus globally. The article basically goes on to talk about how this is basically all according to plan. It is exactly as I have foreseen, and this is a great thing for Paramount Plus because they're going to be launching globally next year. The problem is Star Trek Discovery is on like now. I think it started yesterday, right? So the latest season is starting out, and now there's all these markets that can't watch the show until next year, when Paramount Plus is available in places like the UK and Germany, major markets, major places in the United States. I'm sorry, in Europe. I apologize for that. Major places in Europe that are not going to have access to this show anymore. And what's really funny, strange to me is anybody who's been following the story a little bit knows that basically Netflix paid for Discovery. Some people don't realize that, but if you follow the story at all, Netflix essentially paid to make Discovery. They were able, that was back when Viacom was still split up. So you had CBS Studios. Paramount was out of the fold because Paramount was only making the movies at that point. And the CBS basically was able to negotiate a deal where Netflix essentially was paying to make Discovery and also in many ways launch CBS, then CBS All Access. In other words, Netflix was basically paying to start up its competition. It's a very strange deal. And it's a very strange chapter in the streaming wars that basically Netflix in a lot of ways helped create CBS All Access, which now is Paramount Plus. It's essentially the same thing. But now with the two companies merged back together under Viacom CBS, whereas before they were split. So there's actually a lot of moving parts to this story. There's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I think it's interesting that the particular article, I almost feel like it should have like a little disclaimer. I didn't mention the name of the author, and I'm not going to, because I almost feel like there should have been a disclaimer like this is a paid advertisement from Viacom CBS, because everything in that article gives it such a huge positive spin when the bottom line is, if you are a Discovery fan and you live in one of these markets like the United Kingdom, like Germany, big markets like that, you no longer can watch new episodes of Star Trek Discovery. It is not available, at least not legally, right? It's not available to you anymore. And to me, I don't think there's any positive spin on that. It's interesting to me. I wonder who really instigated things at this point. If it was Paramount Plus, Viacom CBS, if they're the ones who instigated it, I think they're complete idiots, because it's like, why would you do that to this huge audience that you supposedly have overseas? Why would you do that? And then my speculation comes to, well, maybe there really isn't much of an audience overseas, so they're willing to dispose of them, or they're willing to, put them off to the side for a while they try to rebuild that audience, right? With hopefully all their other goodies that they have on Paramount Plus, because obviously everything else that they had wasn't necessarily on Netflix. So that could be their thinking. Again, there's a lot of moving parts of this story. I don't know if you have any real take on it, Dave, as far as what you think, but I do think it's just interesting that this is the final chapter in what I think is a crazy story of how Netflix, in many ways, has created their own competitor.
Well, it's a weird thing. I mean, I just kind of echo what you're saying. If Discovery has such a large audience overseas, why would they cut them out?
Yeah,
So they can't watch the show.
and then the other side of that would be the possibility that Netflix was just like, you know what, we don't want this show. We can see they know what their numbers are, and they're just
Right.
like, you know what, we don't want it anymore. Because it
Right.
seems to me that the smart thing to have done is to keep the contract going until Paramount Plus is available in those markets, right?
Right.
That would seem to be the wise thing to do, right? But you wonder. I mean, it could be that there's some spite. Maybe Netflix basically said, you know what, you are a competitor. We thought you guys were just going to be like a North American deal, and now you're going overseas, and so now we really consider you real competition. So we're not going to support you anymore. But again, Netflix was the company that actually paid for this show. It was not CBS. It was Netflix that actually paid to make this show. In many ways, it should be their show, but they don't want it. That's also the point. They don't want it. They are done with it. They don't want anything to do with it anymore. This also relates to the fact that, a lot of people had talked about this previously, and we talked about on this show. Picard is not on Netflix. It never has been. It's on Amazon overseas in these markets. And then, of course, you also wonder, well, why couldn't Paramount Plus get like sort of a stopgap solution so people can see new episodes of Discovery? Why didn't they negotiate with Amazon? Because they're already partners with Picard. If Picard is doing so well on Amazon, wouldn't they be more than happy to put it on their platform? If Picard is doing really well, I would think that they might be, but that didn't happen. It didn't happen. Hey, Gap Stargate is in the house over on YouTube, over there in lonely YouTube land. Gap, it's good to see you. So Gap says, hey guys, there's going to be lots of spin. However, it boils down to they are greedy, 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 greedy. Not that I am fond of Star Trek Discovery, except for Captain Pike and Spock. And Gap, that's the main defenses I hear from classic Trek fans. In fact, I think, Dave, you're in that camp, right? That you're actually a pretty big fan, especially I think of Captain Pike, right? The Captain Pike version in Discovery. So I hear that quite a bit. Full disclosure, I hate Discovery. I want nothing to do with it. I basically have turned my back on all new Trek. As long as Kurtzman's around, I'm not going to support any of it. I'm not even going to check it out. Some people were telling me, hey, Eric, you got to check out Prodigy. At least check out the first episode. I'm not going to do it. I am not going to spend a dime on Paramount Plus until that regime is gone. I just do not like what's going on there with new Trek. But again, this to me is a streaming war story, and it needs to be told because it's an interesting chapter. It really is. Gap goes on to say, when a company is greedy, they become stupid. And that is true. That is true. Greed can make you stupid. If you are overly greedy, you can make stupid decisions. It does happen. It does absolutely happen. And then Gap said, Dave, love your artistry. Eric, you're a great host. And so are you, Dave. Gap, you are too kind. You're too kind.
Thank you.
And we always appreciate you coming on the show and giving your insight, Gap. I've said it to you many times on the air. I've said it to you tweeting back and forth with you. Wish it was more often because you usually have some great insight, great questions, all that kind of stuff. So we always appreciate you, being around. I know a lot of times you watch us in the reruns. Totally encourage that, but consider commenting if that's the case as well, because we would love some comments and that kind of stuff, and we'll try to respond to your comments as well, regardless of the platform. Whether Dave is actually, he does have a YouTube account, so he does respond sometimes even the comments on the YouTube. So whatever format you prefer. I think one time I even saw you on the Twitter, which we almost never get anybody, responding from the Twitter, but whatever format, you like. Hollywood Jackson says Picard is on Pluto too. Yes, it is. Well, it kind of is, right? They do they have like a Paramount Plus highlight channel on Pluto. I'm familiar with it. In fact, I actually became familiar with it because I noticed that Picard was on Pluto one time, and I was like, "What the heck?" And then, like the next week they had something else. That was some other Paramount Plus show. So as far as I know, they don't have it there regularly, but they do have it from time to time. They will take shows like Discovery, like Picard, and then other shows that Paramount Plus has, and they will put them on that sort of spotlight channel, kind of like a lot of the other channels. Like, there's an AMC spotlight channel on Pluto, kind of a similar thing. Let's see. Oh, Motz brings up an interesting question I hadn't even really thought about. Dave, we're going to have to address this. He says, are we eating turkey together next week, or are you taking next week off? I didn't even think about that.
Oh, huh.
I didn't even think about that, Motz, until you brought it up.
Interesting.
Dave and I are going to have to talk about that to figure out what we're going to do. Yeah, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, folks. I forgot all about that. I forgot all about that. We will get back to you, Motz. We will try to figure that out. You caught us both by surprise, which is kind of funny, but I don't know. Holidays sometimes are weird for people. They've certainly been weird for me lately. So I hadn't given it thought. I know that I can, because because I plan to be at my mom's, but my mom has Wi-Fi, so I can take my laptop and I can still broadcast, even if I'm over at my mom's house. It'll just take some tweaking in the sense that I have to bring my stuff over there. And I don't know what I'm going to do about my mic. I might have to try to figure something else out with that, but we will see. We'll figure this out. Hollywood says the it's looking good, Dave.
Thanks. That red is a lot darker on the screen than what I'm seeing here. Like significantly darker.
Which one's darker?
The dark red, the shadow color, it's so much darker on the screen than it is actually on mine. We're at 143. I got to keep going. I can't mess with it, but
it doesn't look super dark to me. If anybody else wants to comment on that in the Rogues Gallery, let us know, but it doesn't look super dark to me. It doesn't look crazy or bad or anything like that. So, Gap says, thanks guys. I'm going to make an effort to be in the chat live instead of watching the replay. Thank you, Gap. We appreciate that. We really do. And I will say, I mean, it's obviously however you choose, but I did want to put that out there again, that even if you're just doing the reruns, you can always comment, and we can always come back to your comments later, in the comment section of whichever version you're watching. But we'd definitely like to have you live. You add stuff to the show, and we really appreciate it when you come on and you're chatty. Yes, I'm aware, Hollywood. He says they have the Star Trek channel on Pluto. It's all next gen. Yes, I am aware of that. And I think it's funny that they call it the Star Trek channel, but it's all next gen. Like they don't have any of the other shows, which is really weird. I don't know why they did that. I think a lot of us thought, in fact, we announced that on the show when that was happening. We actually did a segment where we were talking about that Star Trek was coming to Pluto. In fact, I did a clip of it, and it's actually one of our better view videos where it was like, Star Trek is coming to Pluto or something like that. And I think at the time, a lot of people thought that eventually they were going to start to have other Star Trek shows on it. Just hasn't happened. I don't know why that is, but it just hasn't happened. It's all next gen. It should just be called the Next Gen channel, but they call it Star Trek. Mott says, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help. Yes, we appreciate that, Mott. You guys do keep us honest in the Rogues Gallery, and you do point out things quite often that we have overlooked or we're not knowledgeable of, or all sorts of things. So we appreciate that from the audience. That's why it's so much fun to have an audience that you can interact with, because they do help keep you honest, and they do help keep you on track a lot of times. Aisha says, it's because you were talking about the colors, Dave. She says it looks fine, like the trading cards.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Aisha.
Mott says he's watching it on his Game Boy, and it looks good to him.
All right.
I wasn't aware you could watch videos on your Game Boy, Mott. That's impressive. That's impressive. Gap said, hey, why don't you do a quick Thanksgiving Day video with some reviews, and then maybe Dave could draw a turkey in the form of a comic.
Well, all I'm going to say is that some of these drawings, sometimes to me, we get done, all look like turkeys, everybody. So that's a loaded thing for me to try to respond to.
That's got me thinking like a super powered turkey or something like that, kind of like like Spider Ham.
Yeah.
But he's a turkey. You know what I mean? What do you think, Dave?
Well, I do have a chicken who thinks he's Batman book that I did with the Janimal.
There you
called
go.
Dark Meat.
So you could even do a play on your own thing, but he's a turkey.
Yeah.
Hey, that would be kind of neat. We actually create a new character, you know what I mean? Because that's where we're going, right? So we do our super turkey for the next show. I like the suggestion, Gap. I think Dave will take it under advisement, and I'll definitely try to push him in that direction. I like it. I like it. I dig your pitch, Gap. I dig it. Hollywood says the red looks good on all of his devices. Hollywood obviously does check multiple devices for us. Hollywood also says the only captain is Kirk. And I tend to agree with you, Hollywood. I have gone on record as saying my second favorite captain, though, is Cisco. I do have a lot of respect for Cisco. So, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily argue with you if you said the only captain is Kirk. He's the original. Hey, he's the only one that's actually been in space. I can say that now. So he really is the only captain, right? So
yeah.
Gap says, as far as the sketch goes, he says it looks beautiful, Dave. So he's not having any issues as far as the color or anything like that. Hollywood Jackson says you should just do like a hand turkey.
Oh goodness.
I like that too. Been doing all this like awesome art. And then for Thanksgiving, you just do like a ham turkey. Actually, I could do it if I had the setup. I could do the ham turkey. We could have Eric drawing live, and I'll do the ham turkey. Unfortunately, I don't have the setup to do it, but that's pretty funny. Do a ham turkey. Mont says, make sure the turkey is masked. I would say, of course. If we're doing the super turkey, it's got to be masked. Absolutely. You know me. It's got to have a mask. It's got to have a mask. Super turkey, as Mott says. Asia says we can critique the Macy's Day Parade. The Macy's Parade. We can do that.
Oh, goodness.
I haven't watched the Macy's Parade, and I don't know how long, because I don't get up and early to do it. It was one of those things like with my kids. We kind of go back and forth. Like sometimes they're with me, sometimes with their mom for Thanksgiving. And I never really got them into it. When I was a kid, I was really into it. I remember, getting up early and watching it, and it was like a real event. And I can't remember the last time I've watched the Macy's Parade. Mott says now he's hungry. All the turkey talk. So. I can totally understand that, Watts. I can totally understand that. All right. So we did have one more thing to mention as far that's in the description. So I want to make sure that we at least address it and we get into it. It's a follow-up. It would fall under pop culture news. So I'll just put the little pop culture news ticker on there. I do believe I at least have the screenshot of the headline of the article for you here, so you can at least check it out if you are so inclined. So we did talk about this last week, a little bit different context because this information had not come to light yet. But I do want to follow up on this. And I know this is actually something that Dave was really interested in because Dave was actually pretty excited about Rogue Squadron. So this article is from IGN. This article is dated November 15th, so it's a little bit older, but still very topical. And then follow up story we were on last week when we were talking about Rogue Squadron being shelved, basically, under the guise that Patty Jenkins was too busy. So here's what this article says. Headline says, Patty Jenkins and Rian Johnson reportedly shelved Star Wars projects because of creative differences. A disturbance in the Force. Says, following the news that Patty Jenkins' Star Wars movie has been delayed indefinitely, reports have surfaced suggesting that the move was made due to creative differences between the director and Lucasfilm executives. Says former THR editor and noted insider Matthew Baloney reports that issues between Jenkins and the studio caused the film to be taken off Lucasfilm's production schedule. Specifically, Baloney reports that the issues have revolved around the film's script, stating that Jenkins and studio executives, including senior VP Michelle, and I cannot pronounce her last name, Michelle Rejuan, couldn't agree on how to move forward. Baloney said that there's a, quote, laughably recurring problem at Lucasfilm. According to the article, a number of agents have previously reported that top filmmakers are often keen to sign on for a movie within the franchise, but find themselves hampered by issues of micromanagement and plot point by committee processes. Baloney cites a similar experiences were held by the Games of Thrones showrunners, who bailed on creating a new Star Wars trilogy, as well as Rian Johnson, whose own trilogy was shelved. There's more to the article. I encourage you to check it out yourself if you're interested. But this is a some very interesting insight. I would say I would still put it more in the rumor category than anything. Anytime I hear insider, I think, hey, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But it goes along the lines of much of what I said last week, which is that this is kind of becoming the norm at Lucasfilm, it seems like. It seems like they're constantly chasing off directors and having problems with them. Dave and I remember we talked about this a little bit off the air. One of the things I thought was funny was that this article specifically cited Rian Johnson. And I'm like, when I was talking about last week, I was using Rian Johnson in the same context as the Game of Thrones guys, as in, here's an example of a failed Lucasfilm project with prominent creators and directors or whatever that fell through. I thought it was funny that they were even talking about him. I don't know if you remember, Dave, you and I were talking about that off the air, but it's like, I was like, why are they even talking about this guy? Is there anybody out there that was still thinking Rian Johnson's new Star Wars is going to happen? Did anybody think that at this point?
I know that I did not think that. I mean, I just sort of assumed that, that they had moved past that. So but I did tell you though, I felt like that there could be a revolt if it turns out that Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron has been shelved and then Rian Johnson's project is still moving forward.
That would be probably irony of ironies.
Yeah.
I guess part of it is somehow the Rian Johnson thing seems to keep popping up for some reason. And I don't know why that is, because in my mind, that project has been dead, like long dead, since before we heard about the Game of Thrones guys and their demise. So I just think it's funny that it keeps popping up. But we do keep hearing these rumors and these stories that these directors are having a difficult time working with Lucasfilm. Solo is a great example of that. We talked about that last week, where they literally had to fire the original directors, and then they had to get Ron Howard to come in and quote unquote save it, which there was no saving that. I mean, I don't know what you folks think of Solo. I think it's the worst Star Wars film ever made. And I think that's saying something, because I'm including Clone Wars in that. And actually, I like Clone Wars, to be honest with you, but I am including them because they are a Star Wars film that was released theatrically. But there does seem to be some problems there. Now, of course, this is the context of this too, is Kathleen Kennedy just got her contract renewed. And I think that's really interesting. You got these rumors about the process being difficult and executives are difficult to work with, that there's this plot point by committee. I mean, holy cow, you know what I mean? Who would want to work under those kind of conditions? How can you work under those kind of conditions if you've got the VP or whatever, and they want to tell you what they think you should be doing in the movie? It's kind of crazy. I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody for walking away under those kind of conditions. I really wouldn't. But again, it's kind of rumor, but it just doesn't surprise me, because there is precedent for this. There are numerous stalled, failed Star Wars projects. At this point, I don't know if I would be surprised if the Kevin Feige thing goes away, because he's supposed to be doing a Star Wars film. And at this point, it seems like it's so weird and dysfunctional over there at Lucasfilm that even that could go away, which would be, I mean, really crazy, because, Feige, you think, at least I think of him as somebody that's got a lot of clout, at Disney. He's the mastermind of the MCU, but it seems like they're having some real problems there when it comes to working with directors, especially prominent directors who maybe have their own clout, right? People that can fight back a little bit. It doesn't seem like they like that. Doesn't seem like they like that at all. What's the old saying Gap says? Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And that happens. That definitely happens with Hollywood studios. That definitely happens, right? And that seems to be what the indication is possibly what's happening at Lucasfilm, is there are too many cooks in the kitchen. And they do need to sort of delegate. They need to trust, right? They need to trust their people. If you think this person is truly a great director, right? If you truly are hiring them on their merit, and you truly believe them, you allow them to get their own vision, right, Dave?
That's right. Just like Lucy Van Pelt said, you have to have respect for your director.
There you go. Well, the thing is with film is generally regarded as the director's craft. The director is sort of center stage when it comes to the creative side of filmmaking. Now, filmmaking is highly collaborative, and everybody brings something to the table. I have stories where a grip came up with a great idea that was incorporated as something that happened on set. So I'm not trying to dismiss that. But generally, people will think of the craft, if you will. It's the filmmaking is the director's craft, and so obviously you have to be able to trust your director to make that thing happen. Incidentally, they also say that TV is the producer's craft, which is why I like TV. So it's all about the showrunner. It's all about the producer. When you talk about TV, because of the continuity issues and things like that. Because in TV, very often the director changes every week. A lot of people don't realize that. They have a different director every week, and it's the producer that keeps the continuity. That's what Gene was, Gene Roddenberry. So just little trivia there if you folks aren't aware of that. I want to make sure that we're caught up on the chat here.
There's a lot of puns going on in the Rogues Gallery.
Yes, there is. The baloney thing that Mott said, I'm so hungry, that sound like Eric is saying baloney instead of baloney. Baloney instead of baloney. There you go. Right. And I may have been my speech may have been a little off in that as well. Um, Gaff had another suggestion with our super turkey. He said the turkey can shoot out stuffing lasers. Stuffing lasers. I like that. I like that. Let's see here. Hollywood says the drawing is jumping off the page, Dave.
Thank you, Hollywood. Thank you.
Although I think he means jumping off the screen.
It's all good. I know what he meant. Thank you, Hollywood.
I agree with you, by the way, Hollywood. I definitely agree with you. Let's see. Asia says, I liked Solo. Fight me. Asia, I will not fight you. I will not do that. I consider you a dear friend, so I will not fight you. But I am curious if you liked Solo or not, Dave, because I hated it. I'm curious if you liked it or not.
I didn't hate it. I mean, I liked it okay. I haven't seen it again though. So and
that says it all, Dave. You're just being diplomatic. Come on.
No, I'm not trying to be diplomatic. I'm just saying I didn't hate it, but I haven't rewatched it either. So that's what I'm saying. It's like I didn't hate it, but I haven't made the effort to rewatch it. I have a feeling that Asia could probably change my mind though.
High praise from you there, Dave. Indeed, high praise. I'm sorry, I hated it, and I will go on record with anybody and say I hated it. I thought it was a terrible movie. Absolutely hated it. Let's see. Asia says Han speaks Wookiee. The Falcon has a brain. Darth Maul is in it. Justice for my Solo sequel. Yeah, I got a big problem with the Maul stuff. I really do. I have a problem. I know that there was some cool stuff they did. Actually, I know the coolest thing they did was actually in Rebels, and I'm not going to spoil anything for anybody because I barely even watch Rebels. I've talked about that, but I do know they did something very cool with Maul in Rebels. But I was always kind of like, bringing. I was never a big fan of bringing Maul back in the first place, to be honest with you. I think he's an awesome character, awesome character. I mean, totally awesome character. And I have a story about the actor who portrayed him. I've talked about it before, and I have total mad respect for him and all that. But I always thought it was a little weird the way they brought him back. Sometimes it's just, sometimes you just gotta let it be because he was popular, and I don't think George Lucas realized how popular that character was going to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed him, right? So that's kind of what happened, and then they kind of had to try to fix that. Regarding the Spidey, Asia says, Dave, it looks spectacular. See what I did there? Tee-hee.
Yes, I saw what you did there. We got another one too.
And Mott's in that respect says, it looks amazing.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Asia.
I see what you folks are doing there. I see it. I see you. And Jane says, awesome drawing, Dave.
Thank you, Mom.
Hollywood says we can wrestle rather than fight. I did wrestle in high school, Hollywood. I wrestled all 4 years in high school. So I definitely have done that. I've done quite a bit of that in my time. And I've done it in other contexts and not necessarily anything good you might be thinking of. So, but I don't want to fight any of you. So I consider you all my friends and I would not fight you. We can always disagree on this program. That's one thing I always want to emphasize. Dave and I disagree all the time on stuff. And we're very close friends. Like we don't just do the show together. Dave and I are actually good personal friends, So, hey man, people need to be like that. You can disagree, especially over who would win between, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Those are the debates we should be happening. It should be happening on shows like this. That's what we should be talking about. And we can be very passionate about it too. And say, you're totally wrong. You know what I mean? So-and-so would whoop so-and-so's ass completely, We can totally be passionate about that. But we don't need to fight. We don't need to fight. Not on this program. Not on my watch. Not on my watch, Mott says he likes Solo, but it's not my favorite. So a little bit more Solo love out there. Did I wear tights, Len? Actually, it's referred to as a singlet. We don't call them tights in wrestling. See, I was an actual wrestler. It's called a singlet. We do not call them tights. Mr. Workman. Gav says diplomatic equals it's okay. I love that non-committal answer, Dave.
I didn't.
Hey, so at least somebody else saw it.
No. I did not hate. See, here's the thing. Okay, there's this belief that it either has to be totally good or totally bad. It could be okay. It's like, it's all right. Like, and that's kind of where I felt like Solo fell in. I would not be against rewatching it. But personally myself, I have not felt the urge to revisit it. It was okay. There's a lot of movies I see like that are okay. And then there's other movies that are the complete opposite of that I will seek out and I will rewatch. Let me just say Black Widow, not okay. I'm not interested to rewatch Black Widow again, for example. Okay. So if we're saying which is better, Solo or Black Widow, Solo wins. I would not be against rewatching Solo. Black Widow, I don't want to ever see that again. I'm good. So
sounds like it's good. I haven't seen Black Widow. I still haven't seen it. I haven't had any interest. I've heard so many things that gave me less interest that I was like, eh. Plus, I always put this out there also. I don't like the way Disney Plus did that. I don't like the premium thing on top of my Disney Plus subscription. I've said that many times and I will keep saying it. I hate that model. Either be, on demand, video on demand, like Apple or something like that, or be subscription. You know what I mean? Do one or the other. Don't make me pay a monthly price and then also make me pay for premium movies. I hate that model, and I hope people do not continue to support that because that is a terrible model. Terrible. Hey, I like Pluto TV. That's what I like. That's my favorite streaming service because it's free. That's why I like it. So it's the one I use the most.
Right. So, but I just put that out there because it's like, again, like I said, when you think about Black Widow, she had some of the, she had a great sequence in Iron Man 2 that was a lot of fun. She was really great in the first Avengers movie. She had that interrogation scene with the Russian general that was a lot of fun. She was amazing, like as a character to like for the whole movie, like in Civil War. And I love that scene where she's on the motorcycle in Age of Ultron. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this character's had some great sequences and she's so much fun to watch. And I was excited to go see her movie. And it just wasn't good. And I'm just like, how did you take such a fun character that I've loved in so many different movies, and at the end of it make me going, maybe it's good she's taking a break.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard. And that's I haven't had any inkling to even go watch it. So I think eventually I'll get to it just because I do like Scarlett Johansson. I'm not going to lie about that for 1 second. But I still haven't watched it. And again, I've heard similar things from other people, and I respect their opinion. And I'm like, I guess I don't really need to see this. Jane gave a little bit more Solo love. She says, I liked Solo too. And let's see here. Asia says Black Widow was hot garbage.
See? Asia
knows I'm very surprised to hear that because Asia, I don't think I've ever heard you be negative about anything. So as far as the movies and things that we've talked about, I can't think off of the top of my head of you really disliking something, especially something genre, So that's interesting. So that again is something else. I can add that to all the other things I have heard from other people who I respect. So let's see. Jane says her favorite as far as streaming is Tubi, and it's free. And actually, I've been trying to use Tubi more. What's also funny about Tubi, because we were talking about streaming wars, and we haven't done streaming wars in a long time. We have touched on this before, is that, we kind of said that Fox, certainly Fox Studios, was a casualty of the streaming wars because Disney bought them out. But Fox still lives in terms of, the Fox networks. And that's, sports, that's the over-the-air network and the news network. And Tubi is their baby. They have not become a casualty of the streaming wars. They are actually very active, which is kind of interesting. That because I thought the whole point of selling, that was certainly my take on it. I thought the whole point of selling Century Fox, selling the studio, was to get out of the streaming wars, that they were surrendering, and then they went and bought Tubi very shortly after that. And we did cover that on this show. I think that's just interesting. It's an interesting front. I will definitely be keeping my eyes on that on Tubi, because that is Fox's front right now in the streaming wars. And I think that's really interesting considering what they did. Gap says, I would pay to see you do the sunset flip. Your stage name is E. I'm going to flip you rogues. Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that. Oh, here we go. Asia says Wonder Woman 1984 is hot garbage. I think I might have heard you say something bad about Wonder Woman 1984. I might stand corrected in that regard, because I think that's been pretty universal. We all hated Wonder Woman 1984, yeah, which I think is so. I mean, how can you mess up Gal Gadot? How can you mess that up? How's that even possible? You know, I don't know. I mean, you have to really try, and they did.
Wonder Woman 84 has so many problems. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, that is hot garbage. And I feel really bad saying that, because I'm a fan of that version of Wonder Woman. I really dig it.
I was trying to rewatch it, and I turned it off.
Yeah, I'll never rewatch that. I will never.
I started it and I kind of like the scene where she's like the little girl competing in the competition. But I mean, like, I literally just turned it off. I was just like, I just don't care.
I will say this. Actually, that's not 100% true, because I just realized this. One of my kids did want to watch it with my brother, and I live with my brother. And, you know, we've got the big screen downstairs in the living room. And I did sit there and sort of watch it with him. Like, I was more on my phone because, you know, I'd already seen the movie. I wasn't interested in it. But I mean, but my point is that there are young people that really liked it, you know, because they were watching it again, because we'd already seen it. And then my daughter wanted to watch it with my brother. So there is a demographic that enjoyed it and thought it was a really good film. And sometimes there is that disconnect, right, with the youths, as Asia was talking about with us and our Tammy and Superman and the real Captain Marvel, which I make that point all the time. The real Captain Marvel to me is what we call Shazam. So, but it is what it is, right? So, yeah, there's a whole other generation, right? That hey, maybe they like it. And sometimes we say, right? Sometimes we say, Dave, it wasn't made for us, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, well, that's true, but I feel like Wonder Woman 84 was supposed to be made for us, but it just didn't work.
No,
not at all.
I don't agree with that at all. You think that was made for us? I don't agree with that at all.
Patty Jenkins stated in interviews and stuff that she was heavily influenced by the Linda Carter television series, which I loved as a kid and I still love as an adult. So I think at one point they might have had that as kind of like a goal, because you can see shades of it, at least in the stylings and stuff.
You know what I think?
Beyond that,
you know what I think? What I think is that she's a casual fan who like millions, you know, millions upon millions of other girls. Because I know girls that are obsessed with Wonder Woman, obsessed with her. Okay, but they're obsessed in terms of they like the image, they'll get merchandise, and they like the character. They always remember the Linda Carter version, but a lot of them, they have not watched the Linda Carter version since they were a little kid. It's nostalgia. It's nostalgia. They do when Wonder Woman comes on the TV, they do not sit down and watch it. And I feel like I mean, I don't know the woman, but I feel like that's where that's coming from. It's like, yeah, I really loved her as a kid and I love Wonder Woman, but she hasn't watched the Linda Carter version of Wonder Woman since she was a kid. And she wouldn't watch it if it started to come on the television. She just wouldn't do it. She would turn on something. That's the take that I have, because I know people like that. You know, I understand the casual fan, you know, in that regard. That they remember it growing up and they have fond memories of it, and you know, they looked up to that actor or whatever. But you know, I've had that experience myself where I have gone back and watched something. I am like, yeah, this really is nowhere near as good as I remember, because it's been so long since I watched it. And when I watched it, I was a you know, young, impressionable kid, you know. But that's my take on it, because I just don't feel like there's a real understanding of the character, of even good storytelling. And I know she's capable of all that, if for nothing else, because I love the first Wonder Woman so much. Because I really liked the first Wonder Woman. I thought that was a great film. I was really excited for it. I was really excited taking my daughters to it. You know, I thought that it was a lot of fun. So I know she's capable of better, but the Linda Carter thing, I think, I mean, you know, spoiler alert, if you will. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's literally there, but it's like, I think it's in the most casual respect. I don't think it has that real, you know, that real understanding of the character and even the legacy or anything like that. I just don't. I think it comes from a more casual nostalgia, you know. I mean, the whole thing with raping the guy, and somebody would be like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, she raped a guy. I don't know if you people realize that, but she did. she had sex with a man without his consent. He just happened to be possessed by Steve Trevor at the time. But why was that even part of it? Why did you even create that problem? I mean, there's so many things I could say. And what does it have to do with the Linda Carter version of Wonder Woman? She never did anything like that. She did some really crazy, weird things. It was a weird show, you know? I'm sorry, but it's like, whew.
I wanted to call out, if you it's kind of disappeared from the chat, but if you would pull up Gap Stargate's comment where he mentions Pluto.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, Gap Stargate says Pluto TV rocks, and also Stir app, and you can watch free TV. I think you can watch it on the computer as well. I haven't tried it that way yet. They have Logan's Run, the TV. I mean, the Logan's Run television show, and Space 1999. I had not heard about the Stir app. It's STIRR. I am definitely going to check that out. I see that Hollywood also says he's going to also, he says he loves Pluto and he's going to have to check out Stir. I'm going to have to check it out too, because I love Space 1999 and I've been trying to find out a way to actually to rewatch it, and I couldn't find anything. So thank you for that, Gap.
And I will mention that I have the Stir app on my Roku TV, and I've had some problems with it. I don't know if you have a Roku TV or not, Dave, but I've had problems navigating that particular app to the point that I don't use it because it's so difficult to navigate. I'd be curious what Gap uses to watch it. He mentioned like you can use your computer. I've never tried it on my computer because I don't like watching on my computer. I like watching on my big screen. That's why I got a smart TV, you know. But I will just mention that for people. I don't know if anybody else has had that experience, but if you have a Roku TV, it might not be that great. At least it hasn't been for me. It's been really weird, and I feel like it's like there's some sort of bug with it, and they're just not fixing it for some reason, you know. But I know there's other ways to watch it. You can get it on your phone, and you know you can obviously watch on your computer as well. Jane says, you guys really helped me out from wasting time watching some bad viewing choices, namely Picard, Wonder Woman 1984, and now Black Widow. So, hey, I am a big believer in learning from other people's mistakes. I'm a big believer in that. You can make all your own mistakes. You do not need to make other people's mistakes. You can learn from other people. You know, I believe in that. Yeah, Hollywood said I love Pluto. I'll have to check out Stir. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on Stir. In fact, I think Stir actually even has Comet on it. I've talked about Comet which is you can get that over the air. But I think Stir actually has Comet, which has right now Comet has like the Battlestar Galactica, the Ron D. Moore version. It has X-Files is on Comet right now, Quantum Leap. And I'm pretty sure Stir has Comet. So it's kind of interesting how some of those channels will do that. They'll actually have like an agreement with one of these streaming services, and you can actually see their content that way. You don't have to have an antenna like me, So for some people don't like antennas. So it is what it is. Asia says regarding Wonder Woman, I had the underoos and everything that did my girl dirty. It should have been better. Yeah, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree. Even if you liked it, I think people can agree that it should have been better. Even if they enjoyed it, I think they would say it could have been better. And Asia also has some Logan's Run love. She said, yes, love Logan's Run, the TV show. I am much more familiar with the movie than the TV show, because the TV show, I don't think it even made a full season of the TV show. But I am very familiar with the movie. I've watched the Logan's Run movie many times.
I've loved the Logan's Run movie is so great. I like the television show as well, but the movie is absolutely fantastic. Still probably the best like blaster or whatever like in anything is the Sandman pistol. That thing is just still cool to this
It's
day.
A cool design, yeah.
It is.
I'd be curious to watch the television show, honestly. I really would, because I know I've seen like maybe like an episode or two. I'd just be curious to watch it. I know they changed a lot of things, but they had to, because obviously they were trying to keep it going. They couldn't have just a linear story that just ended. So they had to add other stuff to it. Speaking of glitches, Hollywood says my HBO locks up all the time, and Jane says mine too. I haven't had problems with HBO Max. If you guys are talking about HBO Max, I have not had problems on my Roku TV with HBO Max. It actually works better than Disney Plus, which I think is really weird, because I know Disney Plus is way more popular. But I still have problems with Disney Plus. And that's multiple platforms, because I used to stream everything on my PlayStation 4. I've had problems there, and now I got the Roku TV, and I have problems there. So I know it's Disney's problem. I know it's not just the device or whatever, or that particular app. I still have problems with Disney Plus, which is one of the reasons I almost never use it. I hardly ever use it, because it's so annoying when it just stops in the middle of a movie or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, Gap actually says, and you were the one, he originated the Stir thing. He said, I watch on my phone. He says, yeah, the Roku app is weird. So a little confirmation of that. Just so little knowledge for you folks, if you're looking into that. Might not want to do it on your Roku TV if that's your only option. Hollywood Jackson says, I'm watching Oak Island too. I have actually watched Oak Island on, I think it's called Real TV. That's another, I'm big on the antenna stuff. So I watch a lot of stuff on the antenna. And that's actually a channel that just appeared a couple months ago. And I've been watching the Oak Island stuff. Hollywood, I think they're insane. I think they're absolutely crazy. But it is what it is. It's still kind of entertaining. And Gap also clarifies, he says, Space 99, Dave, has its own channel on the Stir app. So it's actually its own channel. That's pretty cool. So there's a Space
that's cool.
1999
That's
channel
really cool
on the Stir app.
I sense the Stir app in my future.
There you go. Well, we are way over our standard time. Do you think we're good to wrap? I just wanted to make sure we got to most of the chat and everything like that. I don't want to leave people hanging. So,
yeah, no, I think we're good. The Spider-Man drawing was finished. Again, I tried to do something a little bit more adventurous, so took a little bit longer than probably it should have. But still fun to draw for everyone tonight, and I hope you all enjoyed it. No, yeah, cool. I'm definitely gonna be checking out this Stir app. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go to the outro. I want to thank everyone for hopefully watching. This will probably not be available as an audio, so I'm just gonna say I want to thank you all for watching this episode of the Retro Rogues Live. Again, my name is Dave Beatty. I have been one of your hosts. If you're curious to learn more about what occupies a lot of my time these days, you can check out my t-shirt company. That's Kirby Tees. It's KIRBYTS.com, KirbyTees.com. And while you're there, consider purchasing a Retro Rugs Live t-shirt and supporting the show. We would greatly appreciate your support. But enough about that. I want to thank, as always, my great co-host, Mr. Eric Alexander, as always, providing his unique perspective and point of view on all these topics that we like to talk about here on the show. Eric, please tell the folks who'll be watching or listening at home where they can learn more about you on the interwebs.
I am most active on Twitter. You can reach me there at BassGod14. It's at BASSGOD14. My DMs are wide open. I often take suggestions from you folks about articles that you've read or things you want us to comment about and incorporate them into the show, and I wish to continue that. So if you have any of those rumors or things you want us to look into, let us know. You know, the type of stuff we cover here: pop culture news, streaming wars, Collector's Corner. We haven't done Collector's Corner in a long time. So any of that kind of stuff, feel free to send it my way. BaseGod14 is also the official YouTube. It's also the official Twitch. So if you comment on those platforms, more likely than not, you will be getting a response from me. I always try to look forward to those kind of comments and try to engage people when they do comment on those platforms. And then let's see what we got in the chat. Hollywood Jackson says happy Thanksgiving, which, by the way, I want to address it on the air that we still don't know whether we're going to be doing a Thanksgiving show. I'm inclined to say I will at least do something. I'll talk to Dave to see if he's going to be available or not. It may just be like a just happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and talk about something and then gone. I don't know, but I will say that I will probably at least do something. It also says great show, guys. Bye, everyone. Jane says, I always said one day I would see Dave's name in the movie credits. And indeed you have, I hope, so yeah, that's very cool. We definitely want to emphasize Dave's award there for routine. That's just awesome. That's awesome. Gap Stargate says, Dave, I would be honored if you would follow me on Twitter. So Dave, I think you can hook him up with that. That would be awesome.
That's I'll probably do that tonight. So
awesome. And I know Gap is very active on Twitter, as I am. Yeah, that would be, we'll get you hooked up there, Gap. Jane says, I really enjoyed the show tonight. Lots of fun. Lynn says, I want to be just like you. I figure all I need is a lobotomy and some tights. Peace out. And Mott says, I'm so hungry. It's time to eat. And with that, we will go ahead and leave him with the last word.